"That's all right, Mr. Frodo," said Sam, rubbing his sleeve across his eyes. "I understand, but I can still help, can't I? I've got to get you out of here. At once, see. But first you want some clothes and gear, and then some food. The clothes will be the easiest part. As we're in Mordor, we'd best dress up Mordor fashion, and anyway there isn't no choice. It'll have to be orc stuff for you, Mr. Frodo, I'm afraid. And for me too. If we go together, we'd best match. Now put this round you." Sam unclasped his gray cloak and cast it about Frodo's shoulders. Then, unslinging his pack, he laid it on the floor. He drew Sting from its sheath. Hardly a flicker was to be seen upon its blade. "I was forgetting this, Mr. Frodo," he said. "No, I didn't get everything. You lent me Sting, if you remember, and the lady's glass. I got them both still, but lend them to me a little longer, Mr. Frodo. I must go and see what I can find. You stay here, walk about a bit, and ease your legs. I shan't be long. I shan't have to go far. Take care, Sam," said Frodo, "and be quick. There may be orcs still alive, lurking in wait." "I've got to chance it," said Sam. He stepped to the trapdoor and slipped down the ladder. In a minute his head reappeared. He threw a long knife on the floor. "There's something that might be useful," he said. "He's dead, the one that whipped you. Broke his neck, it seems, in his hurry. Now you draw up the ladder, if you can, Mr. Frodo, and don't you let it down till you hear me call the password. Elbereth I'll call. What the elves say. No orc would say that." Frodo sat for a while and shivered, dreadful fears chasing one another through his mind. Then he got up, drew the gray elven cloak about him, and to keep his mind occupied began to walk to and fro, prying and peering into every corner of his prison. It was not very long, though fear made it seem an hour at least, before he heard Sam's voice calling softly from below. "Elbereth, Elbereth." Frodo let down the light ladder. Up came Sam, puffing, heaving a great bundle on his head. He let it fall with a thud. "Quick now, Mr. Frodo," he said. "I've had a bit of a search to find anything small enough for the likes of us. We'll have to make do, but we must hurry. I've met nothing alive, and I've seen nothing, but I'm not easy. I think this place is being watched. I can't explain it, but, well, it feels to me as if one of those foul flying riders was about up in the blackness where he can't be seen." He opened the bundle. Frodo looked in disgust at the contents, but there was nothing for it. He had to put the things on or go naked. There were long, hairy breeches of some unclean beast fell, and a tunic of dirty leather. He drew them on. Over the tunic went a coat of stout ringmail, short for a full-sized orc, too long for Frodo and heavy. About it he clasped a belt, at which there hung a short sheath holding a broad-bladed stabbing sword. Sam had brought several orc helmets. One of them fitted Frodo well enough, a black cap with iron rim, and iron hoops covered with leather upon, which the evil I was painted in red above the beak-like nose guard. The Morgul stuff, Gorbag's gear, was a better fit and better made, said Sam. But it wouldn't do, I guess, to go carrying his tokens into Mordor. Not after this business here. Well, there you are, Mr. Frodo. A perfect little orc, if I may make so bold. At least you would be, if we could cover your face with a mask, give you longer arms, and make you bow-legged. This will hide some of the telltales. He put a large black cloak round Frodo's shoulders. Now you're ready. You can pick up a shield as we go. What about you, Sam? Said Frodo. Aren't we going to match? Well, Mr. Frodo, I've been thinking, said Sam. I'd best not leave any of my stuff behind, and we can't destroy it. And I can't wear orc mail over all my clothes, can I? I'll just have to cover up." He knelt down and carefully folded his elven cloak. It went into a surprisingly small roll. This he put into his pack that lay on the floor. Standing up, he slung it behind his back, put an orc helm on his head, and cast another black cloak about his shoulders. "There," he said. "Now we match. Near enough. And now we must be off." "I can't go all the way at a run, Sam," said Frodo with a wry smile. "I hope you've made inquiries about inns along the road. Or have you forgotten about food and drink?" "Save me, but so I had," said Sam. He whistled in dismay. "Bless me, Mr. Frodo, but you've gone and made me that hungry and thirsty. I don't know when drop or morsel last passed my lips. I'd forgotten it, trying to find you. But let me think. Last time I looked, I got about enough of that whey bread and of what Captain Farmier gave us to keep me on my legs for a couple of weeks at a pinch. But if there's a drop left in my bottle, there's no more. That's not going to be enough for two, nohow. Don't orcs eat, and don't they drink? Or do they just live on foul air and poison? No, they eat and drink, Sam. The shadow that bred them can only mock. It cannot make. Not real new things of its own. I don't think it gave life to the orcs. It only ruined them and twisted them. And if they are to live at all, they have to live like other living creatures. Foul waters and foul meats they'll take if they can get no better but not poison. They fed me, and so I'm better off than you. There must be food and water somewhere in this place. But there's no time to look for them, said Sam. Well, things are a bit better than you think, said Frodo. I have had a bit of luck while you were away. Indeed, they did not take everything. I found my food bag among some rags on the floor. They've rummaged it, of course. But I guess they disliked the very look and smell of the lembas, worse than Gollum did. It's scattered about, and some of it is trampled and broken, but I've gathered it together. It's not far short of what you've got. But they've taken Faramir's food, and they've slashed up my water bottle. Well, there's no more to be said, said Sam. We've got enough to start on, but the water's going to be a bad business. But come, Mr. Frodo, off we go, or a whole lake of it won't do us any good. Not till you've had a mouthful, Sam, said Frodo. I won't budge. Here, take this elven cake, and drink that last drop in your bottle. The whole thing is quite hopeless, so it's no good worrying about tomorrow. It probably won't come. At last they started. Down the ladder they climbed, and then Sam took it and laid it in the passage beside the huddled body of the fallen orc. The stair was dark, but on the rooftop the glare of the mountain could still be seen, though it was dying down now to a sullen red. They picked up 2 shields to complete their disguise, and then went on. Down the great stairway they plodded. The high chamber of the turret behind, where they had met again, seemed almost homely. They were out in the open again now, and terror ran along the walls. All might be dead in the tower of Cirith Ungol, but it was steeped in fear and evil still. At length they came to the door upon the outer court, and they halted. Even from where they stood, they felt the malice of the watchers beating on them, black silent shapes on either side of the gate through which the glare of Mordor dimly showed. As they threaded their way among the hideous bodies of the orcs, each step became more difficult. Before they even reached the archway, they were brought to a stand. To move an inch further was a pain and weariness to will and limb. Frodo had no strength for such a battle. He sank to the ground. I can't go on, Sam, he murmured. I'm going to faint. I don't know what's come over me. I do, Mr. Frodo. Hold up now. It's the gate. There's some devilry there. But I got through, and I'm going to get out. It can't be more dangerous than before. Now for it. Sam drew out the elven glass of Galadriel again, as if to do honor to his hardihood, and to grace with splendor his faithful brown hobbit hand that had done such deeds. The phial blazed forth suddenly, so that all the shadowy court was lit with a dazzling radiance like lightning, but remained steady and did not pass. Gilthaniel, Elbereth, Sam cried. For why he did not know, his thoughts sprang back suddenly to the elves in the Shire, and the song that drove away the Black Rider in the trees. Aya Elenian Ankylima, cried Frodo once again behind him. The will of the Watchers was broken with a suddenness like the snapping of a cord, and Frodo and Sam stumbled forward. Then they ran, through the gate, and past the great seated figures with their glittering eyes. There was a crack. The keystone of the arch crashed almost on their heels, and the wall above crumbled and fell in ruin. Only by a hair did they escape. A bell clanged, and from the Watchers there went up a high and dreadful wail. Far up above in the darkness it was answered. Out of the black sky there came dropping like a bolt a winged shape, rending the clouds with a ghastly shriek. Chapter 2. The Land of Shadow. Sam had just wits enough left to thrust the phial back into his breast. "Run, Mr. Frodo," he cried. "No, not that way. There's a sheer drop over the wall. Follow me." Down the road from the gate they fled. In 50 paces, with a swift bend, round a jutting bastion of the cliff, it took them out of sight from the tower. They had escaped for the moment. Cowering back against the rock, they drew breath, and then they clutched at their hearts. Perching now on the wall beside the ruined gate, the Nazgul sent out its deadly cries. All the cliffs echoed. In terror they stumbled on. Soon the road bent sharply eastward again and exposed them for a dreadful moment to view from the tower. As they flitted across, they glanced back and saw the great black shape upon the battlement. Then they plunged down between high rock walls in a cutting that fell steeply to join the Morgul road. They came to the way meeting. There was still no sign of orcs, nor of an answer to the cry of the Nazgul. But they knew that the silence would not last long. At any moment now the hunt would begin. "This won't do, Sam," said Frodo. "If we were real orcs, we ought to be dashing back to the tower, not running away. The first enemy we meet will know us. We must get off this road somehow." "But we can't," said Sam, "not without wings." The eastern faces of the Ephel-Duath were sheer, falling in cliff and precipice to the black trough that lay between them and the inner ridge. A short way beyond the way meeting, after another steep incline, a flying bridge of stone leapt over the chasm and bore the road across into the tumbled slopes and glens of the Morgai. With a desperate spurt, Frodo and Sam dashed along the bridge, but they had hardly reached its further end when they heard the hue and cry begin. Away behind them, now high above on the mountain's side, loomed the tower of Cirith Ungol, its stones glowing dully. Suddenly its harsh bell clanged again, and then broke into a shattering peal. Horns sounded, and now from beyond the bridge end came answering cries. Down in the dark trough, cut off from the dying glare of Aradruin, Frodo and Sam could not see ahead, but already they heard the tramp of iron-shod feet, and upon the road there rang the swift clatter of hoofs. "Quick, Sam, over we go," cried Frodo. They scrambled on to the low parapet of the bridge. Fortunately, there was no longer any dreadful drop into the gulf, for the slopes of the Morgai had already risen almost to the level of the road, but it was too dark for them to guess the depth of the fall. "Well, here goes, Mr. Frodo," said Sam. "Goodbye." He let go. Frodo followed, and even as they fell, they heard the rush of horsemen sweeping over the bridge and the rattle of orc feet running up behind. But Sam would have laughed if he had dared, half fearing a breaking plunge down onto unseen rocks the hobbits landed, in a drop of no more than a dozen feet, with a thud and a crunch into the last thing that they had expected, a tangle of thorny bushes. There Sam lay still, softly sucking a scratched hand. When a sound of hoof and foot had passed, he ventured a whisper. "Bless me, Mr. Frodo, but I didn't know as anything grew in Mordor. But if I had known, this is just what I'd have looked for. These thorns must be a foot long by the feel of them. They've stuck through everything I've got on. Wish I'd put that mail shirt on." "Orc mail doesn't keep these thorns out," said Frodo. "Not even a leather jerkin is any good." They had to struggle to get out of the thicket. The thorns and briars were as tough as wire and as clinging as claws. Their cloaks were rent and tattered before they broke free at last. "Now down we go, Sam," Frodo whispered. "Down into the valley quick, and then turn northward as soon as ever we can." Day was coming again in the world outside, and far beyond the glooms of Mordor the sun was climbing over the eastern rim of Middle-earth. But here all was still dark as night. The mountain smoldered and its fires went out. The glare faded from the cliffs. The easterly wind that had been blowing ever since they left Ithilien now seemed dead. Slowly and painfully they clambered down, groping, stumbling, scrambling among rock and briar and dead wood in the blind shadows, down and down until they could go no further. At length they stopped and sat side by side, their backs against a boulder. Both were sweating. If Shagrat himself was to offer me a glass of water, I'd shake his hand, said Sam. "Don't say such things," said Frodo. "It only makes it worse." Then he stretched himself out, dizzy and weary, and he spoke no more for a while. At last, with a struggle, he got up again. To his amazement, he found that Sam was asleep. "Wake up, Sam," he said. "Come on. It's time we made another effort." Sam scrambled to his feet. "Well, I never," he said. "I must have dropped off. It's a long time, Mr. Frodo, since I had a proper sleep and my eyes just closed down on their own." Frodo now led the way, northward as near as he could guess, among the stones and boulders lying thick at the bottom of the great ravine. But presently he stopped again. "It's no good, Sam," he said. "I can't manage it. This mail shirt, I mean. Not in my present state. Even my mithril coat seemed heavy when I was tired. This is far heavier. And what's the use of it? We shan't win through by fighting. But we may have some to do," said Sam. "And there's knives and stray arrows. That Gollum isn't dead, for one thing. I don't like to think of you with naught but a bit of leather between you and a stab in the dark." "Look here, Sam, dear lad," said Frodo. "I am tired, weary. I haven't a hope left. But I have to go on trying to get to the mountain as long as I can move. The ring is enough. This extra weight is killing me. It must go. But don't think I'm ungrateful. I hate to think of the foul work you must have had among the bodies to find it for me. Don't talk about it, Mr. Frodo. Bless you. I'd carry you on my back if I could. Let it go then." Frodo laid aside his cloak and took off the orc mail and flung it away. He shivered a little. "What I really need is something warm," he said. "It's gone cold, or else I've caught a chill. You can have my cloak, Mr. Frodo, said Sam. He unslung his pack and took out the elven cloak. How's this, Mr. Frodo? He said. You wrap that orc rag close round you and put the belt outside it. Then this can go over all. It don't look quite orc fashion, but it'll keep you warmer, and I dare say it'll keep you from harm better than any other gear. It was made by the lady. Frodo took the cloak and fastened the brooch. That's better, he said. I feel much lighter. I can go on now, but this blind dark seems to be getting into my heart. As I lay in prison, Sam, I try to remember the Brandywine and Woody End and the water running through the mill Hobbiton. But I can't see them now. There now, Mr. Frodo, it's you that's talking of water this time, said Sam. If only the lady could see us or hear us, I'd say to her, Your ladyship, all we want is light and water. Just clean water and plain daylight, better than any jewels, begging your pardon. But it's a long way to Lorien. Sam sighed and waved his hand towards the heights of the Ephel-Duath, now only to be guessed as a deeper blackness against the black sky. They started off again. They had not gone far when Frodo paused. There's a black rider over us, he said. I can feel it. We had better keep still for a while. Crouched under a great boulder, they sat facing back westward and did not speak for some time. Then Frodo breathed a sigh of relief. It's past, he said. They stood up, and then they both stared in wonder. Away to their left, southward, against the sky that was turning gray, the peaks and high ridges of the Great Range began to appear dark and black, visible shapes. Light was growing behind them. Slowly it crept towards the north. There was battle far above in the high spaces of the air. The billowing clouds of Mordor were being driven back, their edges tattering as a wind out of the living world came up and swept the fumes and smokes towards the dark land of their home. Under the lifting skirts of the dreary canopied dim light leaked into Mordor like pale morning through the grimed window of a prison. Look at it, Mr. Frodo, said Sam. Look at it. The wind's changed. Something's happening. He's not having it all his own way. His darkness is breaking up out in the world there. I wish I could see what is going on. It was the morning of the 15th of March, and over the vale of Anduin the sun was rising above the eastern shadow, and the southwest wind was blowing. Theoden lay dying on the Pelennor fields. As Frodo and Sam stood and gazed, the rim of light spread all along the line of the Ephel-Duath, and then they saw a shape moving at a great speed out of the west, at first only a black speck against the glimmering strip above the mountain tops, but growing until it plunged like a bolt into the dark canopy and passed high above them. As when it sent out a long, shrill cry, the voice of a Nazgul. But this cry no longer held any terror for them. It was a cry of woe and dismay, ill tidings for the Dark Tower. The Lord of the Ringwraiths had met his doom. What did I tell you? Something's happening, cried Sam. The war's going well, said Shagrat. But Gorbag, he wasn't so sure. And he was right there, too. Things are looking up, Mr. Frodo. Haven't you got some hope now? Well, no, not much, Sam, Frodo sighed. That's away beyond the mountains. We're going east, not west. And I'm so tired. And the ring is so heavy, Sam. And I begin to see it in my mind all the time like a great wheel of fire. Sam's quick spirits sank again at once. He looked at his master anxiously, and he took his hand. Come, Mr. Frodo, he said. I've got one thing I wanted, a bit of light. Enough to help us, and yet I guess it's dangerous too. Try a bit further, and then we'll lie close and have a rest. But take a morsel to eat now, a bit of the elves' food. It may hearten you." Sharing a wafer of limbas and munching it as best they could with their parched mouths, Frodo and Sam plodded on. The light, though no more than a gray dusk, was now enough for them to see that they were deep in the valley between the mountains. It sloped up gently northward, and at its bottom went the bed of a now dry and withered stream. Beyond its stony course they saw a beaten path that wound its way under the feet of the westward cliffs. Had they known, they could have reached it quicker, for it was a track that left the main Morgul road at the western bridge end and went down by a long stair cut in the rock to the valley's bottom. It was used by patrols or by messengers going swiftly to lesser posts and strongholds north away, between Cirith Ungol and the narrows of Icenmouth, the iron jaws of Carrick and Grian. It was perilous for the hobbits to use such a path, but they needed speed, and Frodo felt that he could not face the toil of scrambling among the boulders or in the trackless glens of the Morgai. And he judged that northward was, maybe, the way that their hunters would least expect them to take. The road east of the plain, or the pass back westward, those they would first search most thoroughly. Only when he was well north of the tower did he mean to turn and seek for some way to take him east on the last desperate stage of his journey. So now they crossed the stony bed and took to the Orc path, and for some time they marched along it. The cliffs at their left were overhung, and they could not be seen from above, but the path made many bends, and at each bend they gripped their sword hilts and went forward cautiously. The light grew no stronger, for Urduin was still belching forth a great fume that, beaten upwards by the opposing airs, mounted higher and higher, until it reached a region above the wind and spread in an immeasurable roof, whose central pillar rose out of the shadows beyond their view. They had trudged for more than an hour when they heard a sound that brought them to a halt. Unbelievable, but unmistakable. Water trickling out of a gully on the left, so sharp and narrow that it looked as if the black cliff had been cloven by some huge axe. Water came dripping down. The last remains, maybe, of some sweet rain gathered from sunlit seas, but ill-fated to fall at last upon the walls of the black land and wander fruitless down into the dust. Here it came out of the rock in a little falling streamlet, and flowed across the path, and turning south ran away swiftly to be lost among the dead stones. Sam sprang towards it. "If ever I see the lady again, I will tell her," he cried. "Light, and now water." Then he stopped. "Let me drink first, Mr. Frodo," he said. "All right, but there's room enough for two." "I didn't mean that," said Sam. "I mean, if it's poisonous or something that will show its badness quick, well, better me than you, master, if you understand me. Ido. But I think we'll trust our luck together, Sam, or our blessing. Still, be careful now, if it's very cold." The water was cool, but not icy, and it had an unpleasant taste, at once bitter and oily, or so they would have said at home. Here it seemed beyond all praise, and beyond fear or prudence. They drank their fill, and Sam replenished his water bottle. After that, Frodo felt easier, and they went on for several miles, until the broadening of the road and the beginnings of a rough wall along its edge warned them that they were drawing near to another Orkhold. "This is where we turn aside, Sam," said Frodo, "and we must turn east." He sighed as he looked at the gloomy ridges across the valley. I have just about enough strength left to find some hollow up there, and then I must rest a little. The riverbed was now some way below the path. They scrambled down to it and began to cross it. To their surprise, they came upon dark pools fed by threads of water trickling down from some source higher up the valley. Upon its outer marges under the westward mountains, Mordor was a dying land, but it was not yet dead. And here things still grew, harsh, twisted, bitter, struggling for life. In the glens of the Morgai on the other side of the valley, low scrubby trees lurked and clung. Coarse gray grass tussocks fought with the stones, and withered mosses crawled on them. And everywhere great writhing, tangled brambles sprawled. Some had long stabbing thorns, some hook barbs that rent like knives. The sullen shriveled leaves of a past year hung on them, grating and rattling in the sad airs, but their maggot-ridden buds were only just opening. Flies, dun or gray or black, marked like orcs with a red eye-shaped blotch, buzzed and stung, and above the briar thickets clouds of hungry midges danced and reeled. "Orc gear's no good," said Sam, waving his arms. "I wish I got an orc's hide." At last Frodo could go no further. They had climbed up a narrow, shelving ravine, but they still had a long way to go before they could even come in sight of the last craggy ridge. "I must rest now, Sam, and sleep if I can," said Frodo. He looked about, but there seemed nowhere even for an animal to crawl into in this dismal country. At length, tired out, they slunk under a curtain of brambles that hung down like a mat over a low rock face. There they sat and made such a meal as they could. Keeping back the precious lembas for the evil days ahead, they ate the half of what remained in Sam's bag of Faramir's provision, some dried fruit, and a small slip of cured meat, and they sipped some water. They had drunk again from the pools in the valley, but they were very thirsty again. There was a bitter tang in the air of Mordor that dried the mouth. When Sam thought of water, even his hopeful spirit quailed. Beyond the Morgai, there was the dreadful plain of Gorgoroth to cross. "Now you go to sleep first, Mr. Frodo," he said. "It's getting dark again. I reckon this day is nearly over." Frodo sighed and was asleep almost before the words were spoken. Sam struggled with his own weariness, and he took Frodo's hand, and there he sat silent till deep night fell. Then at last, to keep himself awake, he crawled from the hiding place and looked out. The land seemed full of creaking and cracking and sly noises, but there was no sound of voice or of foot. Far above the Ephel-Dueth in the west the night sky was still dim and pale. There, peeping among the cloud rack above a dark tor high up in the mountains, Sam saw a white star twinkle for a while. The beauty of it smote his heart as he looked up out of the forsaken land, and hope returned to him. For like a shaft, clear and cold, the thought pierced him that in the end the shadow was only a small and passing thing. There was light and high beauty forever beyond its reach. His song in the tower had been defiance rather than hope, for then he was thinking of himself. Now, for a moment, his own fate and even his master's ceased to trouble him. He crawled back into the brambles and laid himself by Frodo's side, and putting away all fear, he cast himself into a deep, untroubled sleep. They woke together, hand in hand. Sam was almost fresh, ready for another day, but Frodo sighed. His sleep had been uneasy, full of dreams of fire, and waking brought him no comfort. Still his sleep had not been without all healing virtue. he was stronger, more able to bear his burden one stage further. They did not know the time, nor how long they had slept. But after a morsel of food and a sip of water, they went on up the ravine until it ended in a sharp slope of screes and sliding stones. There the last living things gave up their struggle. The tops of the Morgai were grassless, bare, jagged, barren as a slate. After much wandering and search, they found a way that they could climb, and with the last 100 feet of clawing scramble, they were up. They came to a cleft between two dark crags, and passing through found themselves on the very edge of the last fence of Mordor. Below them, at the bottom of a fall of some 1,500 feet, lay the inner plains stretching away into a formless gloom beyond their sight. The wind of the world blew now from the west, and the great clouds were lifted high, floating away eastward, but still only a gray light came to the dreary fields of Gorgoroth. Their smokes trailed on the ground and lurked in hollows, and fumes leaked from fissures in the earth. Still far away, 40 miles at least, they saw Mount Doom, its feet founded in ashen ruin, its huge cone rising to a great height, where its reeking head was swathed in cloud. Its fires were now dimmed, and it stood in smoldering slumber, as threatening and dangerous as a sleeping beast. Behind it there hung a vast shadow, ominous as a thundercloud, the veils of Barad-dûr that was reared far away upon a long spur of the Ashen Mountains thrust down from the north. The dark power was deep in thought, and the eye turned inward, pondering tidings of doubt and danger. A bright sword and a stern and kingly face it saw, and for a while it gave little thought to other things, and all its great stronghold, gate on gate, and tower on tower, was wrapped in a brooding gloom. Frodo and Sam gazed out in mingled loathing and wonder on this hateful land. Between them and the smoking mountain, and about it north and south, all seemed ruinous and dead, a desert burned and choked. They wondered how the lord of this realm maintained and fed his slaves and his armies. Yet armies he had, as far as their eyes could reach, along the skirts of the Morgai and away southward. There were camps, some of tents, some ordered like small towns. One of the largest of these was right below them. Barely a mile out into the plain, it clustered like some huge nest of insects, with straight dreary streets of huts and long, low drab buildings. About it the ground was busy with folk going to and fro. A wide road ran from its southeast to join the Morgul Way, and along it many lines of small black shapes were hurrying. "I don't like the look of things at all," said Sam. "Pretty hopeless, I call it, saving that where there's such a lot of folk there must be wells or water, not to mention food. And these are men, not orcs, or my eyes are all wrong." Neither he nor Frodo knew anything of the great slave-worked fields away south in this wide realm, beyond the fumes of the mountain by the dark, sad waters of Lake Nirnan, nor the great roads that ran away east and south to tributary lands, from which the soldiers of the tower brought long wagon trains of goods and booty and fresh slaves. Here in the northward regions were the mines and forges and the musterings of long-planned war. And here the dark power, moving its armies like pieces on the board, was gathering them together. Its first moves, the first feelers of its strength, had been checked upon its western line, southward and northward. For the moment it withdrew them, and brought up new forces, massing them about Cirith Gorger for an avenging stroke. And if it had also been its purpose to defend the mountain against all approach, it could scarcely have done more. Well, Sam went on, whatever they have to eat and drink, we can't get it. There's no way down that I can see. And we couldn't cross all that open country crawling with enemies, even if we did get down. Still, we shall have to try, said Frodo. It's no worse than I expected. I never hoped to get across. I can't see any hope of it now, but I've still got to do the best I can. At present, that is to avoid being captured as long as possible. So we must still go northwards, I think, and see what it is like where the open plain is narrower. I guess what it'll be like, said Sam. Where it's narrower, the orcs and men will just be packed closer. You'll see, Mr. Frodo. I dare say I shall, if we ever get so far, said Frodo, and turned away. They soon found that it was impossible to make their way along the crest of the Morgai, or anywhere along its higher levels, pathless as they were and scored with deep gills. In the end, they were forced to go back down the ravine that they had climbed and seek for a way along the valley. It was rough going, for they dared not cross over to the path on the westward side. After a mile or more they saw, huddled in a hollow at the cliff's foot, the orc hole that they had guessed was near at hand. A wall and a cluster of stone huts set about the dark mouth of a cave. There was no movement to be seen, but the hobbits crept by cautiously, keeping as much as they could to the thorn brakes that grew thickly at this point along both sides of the old watercourse. They went 2 or 3 miles further, and the orc hold was hidden from sight behind them. But they had hardly begun to breathe more freely again when, harsh and loud, they heard orc voices. Quickly they slunk out of sight behind a brown and stunted bush. The voices drew nearer. Presently 2 orcs came into view. One was clad in ragged brown and was armed with a bow of horn. It was of a small breed, black-skinned, with wide and snuffling nostrils, evidently a tracker of some kind. The other was a big fighting orc, like those of Shagrat's company, bearing the token of the eye. He also had a bow at his back and carried a short, broad-headed spear. As usual, they were quarreling, and being of different breeds, they used the common speech after their fashion. Hardly 20 paces from where the hobbits lurked, the small orc stopped. "An AR," it snarled. "I'm going home." It pointed across the valley to the orc hold. "No good wearing my nose out on stones anymore. There's not a trace left, I say. I've lost the scent through giving way to you. It went up into the hills, not along the valley, I tell you. Not much use are you, you little snufflers," said the big orc. "I reckon eyes are better than your snotty noses." "Then what have you seen with them?" snarled the other. "Garn, you don't even know what you're looking for." "Whose blame's that?" said the soldier. "Not mine. That comes from higher up. First they say it's a great elf in bright armor. Then it's a sort of small dwarf man. Then it must be a pack of rebel Uruk-hai. Or maybe it's all the lot together." "AR," said the tracker. "They've lost their heads, that's what it is. And some of the bosses are going to lose their skins too. I guess if what I hear is true, tower raided and all, and hundreds of your lads done in, and prisoner got away. If that's the way you fighters go on, small wonder there's bad news from the battles." "Who says there's bad news?" shouted the soldier. "Otter, who says there isn't? That's cursed rebel talk, and I'll stick you if you don't shut it down, see?" All right, said the tracker. "I'll say no more and go on thinking. But what's the black sneak got to do with it all? That gobbler with the flapping hands. I don't know. Nothing, maybe. But he's up to no good. Nosing around, I'll wager. Curse him. No sooner had he slipped us and run off than word came he's wanted alive. Wanted quick. Well, I hope they get him and put him through it, growled the tracker. He messed up the scent back there, pinching that cast-off mail shirt that he found and paddling all round the place before I could get there. It saved his life anyhow, said the soldier. Why, before I knew he was wanted, I shot him as neat at 50 paces right in the back, but he ran on. Garn, you missed him, said the tracker. First you shoot wild, then you run too slow, and then you send for the poor trackers. I've had enough of you. He loped off. You come back, shouted the soldier, or I'll report you. Who to? Not to your precious Shagrat. He won't be captain anymore. I'll give your name and number to the Nazgul, said the soldier, lowering his voice to a hiss. One of them's in charge of the tower now. The other halted, and his voice was full of fear and rage. You cursed peaching sneak thief, he yelled. You can't do your job, and you can't even stick by your own folk. Go to your filthy shriekers, and may they freeze the flesh off you, if the enemy doesn't get them first. They've done it, number one. I've heard, and I hope it's true. The big orc, spear in hand, leapt after him, but the tracker, springing behind a stone, put an arrow in his eye as he ran up, and he fell with a crash. The other ran off across the valley and disappeared. For a while the hobbits sat in silence. At length Sam stirred. Well, I call that neat as neat, he said. If this nice friendliness would spread about in Mordor, half our trouble would be over. Quathly, so Frodo whispered. There may be others about. We have evidently had a very narrow escape, and the hunt was hotter on our tracks than we guessed. But that is the spirit of Mordor, Sam, and it has spread to every corner of it. Orcs have always behaved like that, or so all tales say, when they're on their own. But you can't get much hope out of it. They hate us far more, all together and all the time. If those two had seen us, they would have dropped all their quarrel until we were dead. There was another long silence. Sam broke it again, but with a whisper this time. Did you hear what they said about that gobbler, Mr. Frodo? I told you Gollum wasn't dead yet, didn't I? Yes, I remember. And I wondered how you knew, said Frodo. Well, come now. I think we had better not move out from here again until it has gone quite dark. So you shall tell me how you know and all about what happened, if you can do it quietly. I'll try, said Sam, but when I think of that stinker I get so hot I could shout. There the hobbits sat under the cover of the thorny bush, while the drear light of Mordor faded slowly into a deep and starless night, and Sam spoke into Frodo's ear all that he could find words for of Gollum's treacherous attack, the horror of Shelob, and his own adventures with the orcs. When he had finished, Frodo said nothing but took Sam's hand and pressed it. At length he stirred. Well, I suppose we must be going on again, he said. I wonder how long it will be before we really are caught, and all the toiling and the slinking will be over, and in vain. He stood up. It's dark, and we cannot use the lady's glass. Keep it safe for me, Sam. I have nowhere to keep it now, except in my hand, and I shall need both hands in the blind night.